y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com, and today I am going to work on an art journal process video. I think we'll kind of go up here in the front. I will be working on this spread. I'm going to start out with some simple watercolor background and then layer some acrylic paint over the top. So I hope you enjoy the process. I'll link everything that I end up using down below that I can find. Otherwise, let's go. This was kind of a different art journal process in that I kind of knew what techniques I wanted to do, but I didn't really know what subject matter or what the point of the art journal page is going to be, if that makes sense. So sometimes I have a quote or a title or at least like a theme in mind. And in this case, I just knew I wanted to do watercolor in the background, and I chose my metallic watercolors, which are just so pretty, and I decided to go with some warm colors. So I'm kind of doing this ombre feel as we go from the light yellow all the way up through golds and rust into this kind of dark red feel. And at first I start light, and then with watercolor you can always build up on top of it, and the brush strokes I knew were going to show as I worked, so I made sure to do some longer brush strokes, and I wanted the colors to kind of flow in and out of each other in this curved pattern. So you'll see me kind of change the direction a little bit, trying to soak up some of the extra watercolor that ended up in the gutter of the page. And then of course I'll smooth out some of those marks that I make with the paper towel. But I spent some time just building this up, just adding color, drying it, adding more color, working with the different brush strokes just to see what I can create. These are actually the Prima metallic watercolors, and I love the shine and the shimmer that you get with them. I will say that I feel like you do get more brush strokes with these than you would with other watercolors. It lessens a little bit as you dry it, but it does take a little while to build up the color pigment that you're going for if you're wanting a more saturated look. And the brush strokes are pretty prominent on this page, and that was okay with me because I liked the direction. What I end up going with is the word flow on this, and because you see some motion in the brush strokes, I think that that helps a lot. And you can see as it dries, they definitely lessen in intensity, but I'm going to come back again. I wanted to see how it would kind of come down the page, but I ended up not really liking that. So you'll see me put the book down because I actually don't want it to build on the page. I don't want it to drip, and dripping is normally one of my very favorite techniques, but that wasn't really what I was going for in this case. So I have it like this, and then I end up deciding, you know, that's not really what I wanted to go for anyway. So I'll lay it down and just keep going with what I had. And again, just adding another layer so that I can have a more saturated look. It took several layers with this particular watercolor page, but I like these autumnal colors. I like this feel. It feels a little bit like a sunset or a sunrise, and I think it's really, really pretty across this whole page. Once that dries, I'm going to come back with some Dina Wakley acrylic gloss spray, and this is in the Guild color, so it's a beautiful golden shimmer, and I'm using pixie spray on the back of the stencil to hold it in place, and then I will spray directly over the top of it with the Dina Wakley media spray, soaking up some of the extra here, and then I'll just move my stencil ever so slightly. And I just wanted these swirls, which again kind of created this feeling of motion. It's not really intense because it's in the same color tone family, but it gives that interest and texture that I was looking for as far as adding some more motion going up the diagonal of this page. And you can see I turn my stencil so that it ends up facing different directions. Right now it looks a little odd because you can see where the edges of the stencil were, but I'm going to come back with watercolor and with stamping and kind of soften up that look just a little bit more. So getting that last little bit of spray. Whenever you're using these Dina Wakley gloss sprays, make sure to go clean your stencils right away because they will dry directly on the stencil. Okay, so now coming back again with watercolor, and I wanted this pattern to really just be more in the center of this image, so I'm adding more intensity on the edges, covering up some of the pattern that was sticking out just a little bit just to dampen it, and I'll do the same thing here on the bottom. Just again, bringing your attention to this kind of middle diagonal because that's where I wanted the focus to be. Okay, so I let that dry really well once I finished with the layering of the watercolor, and then I decide to add a few splatters, and that has two effects. It softens the edges again because there's kind of bits and pieces of the acrylic in some different places, so it doesn't draw your eye to the harsh line of the stencil quite as much, so just adding some right here around the edges of where I had the stenciling, and then I end up going for a dark purple up at the top and then a bright yellow at the bottom just to kind of accentuate that ombre feel. It's not much, it's very gentle. This is kind of a really sparse background, but I do like it. It has this kind of ethereal feel, which as I went to kind of pick out some of the stamps that I wanted to use on the page, started to kind of fit. So the stamps that were jumping out at me were these stamps. I love these line drawing stamps from Illustrated Faith. And then I love, love, love these gears from By the Well Forgot. I'm not sure that either of these stamps are in stock anymore, but I wanted to use them. I'm trying to use a lot of my stamps a little bit more because I just have so many, and sometimes I just forget the ones I have. So I went through and I found these and I remembered how much I love them, and I'm just going to have them kind of floating across the page. And this is where the theme for the page came from, because these gears remind me of gears kind of in your head. Sorry for the shaking camera there. I went with a little force. It reminds me of gears turning in your head, thinking of new ideas, creating. And so I started overlaying these gears, kind of having them floating up, and then I'm going to choose a stamp that has a floral piece to it, but then also a stamp that has a girl that's looking up. And this art journal is now going to be kind of representation of a creative flow, how you have this kind of motion going forwards and going up, and you have these gear turning and this beautiful warm feeling from the whole image. And I think it perfectly describes what it's like to be in a creative flow and just how inspiring it can be when you feel that in your creating process. I love using stamps in my art journaling because I feel like it's a little bit of a shortcut. Could I have drawn all of these gears? I probably could have. It would have taken me a pretty long time, and I would have had to look at a lot of different examples, but being able to stamp it allows me to get these images across in an easier way, and I can really take advantage of someone else's artistic ability. I can appreciate it and use it in my art journal. So I love using the stamps as a jumping off point. I don't think these two stamp sets would have been stamps that are normally put together, but that's okay. So I grabbed one more. I wanted some more florals up near where all the gears were, and so I decided to do these single roses as if they were kind of flowing along with everything else. And I really do like the juxtaposition of the gears and the florals. I think that that's a really interesting play, and I think that's a really interesting commentary on what it feels like to be working creatively and doing something beautiful, but have the gears turning and really trying to figure out what will work best and how to make your beautiful ideas flow in the easiest manner possible. All right, I have sped this next part up a great deal because it took me a while. I'm using my acrylograph markers. These are from Archer and Olive. They are basically paint pens that are filled with acrylic paint. They have these really great tips though that are fine point tips that you can use to color, and I chose those because I knew I had pieces or stamped pieces that were layered on top of each other, and so this would cover up some of the stamped lines that I no longer wanted showing. So I'm just coming through. I only am going to use warm colors because again I was going for this warm feel on the whole page, and I won't end up coloring everything. Some of the gears will stay just black and white, but I do color in my girl, my florals, and a few of the gears with some gold. I love that Archer and Olive has metallics because they add nicely to the metallic feel of this whole page. So again, picking and choosing. Some of them are metallic, some of them are not. I went with pinks for the roses and some different florals in my girl's hair. And I like how the color kind of pops off just a little bit. And once I was done with that, I decided to go ahead and add in my title. I'm going to title this Creative Flow, and you'll see that the title kind of flows through the page in the same way that all of these elements are. So I write it out in pencil first, and then I'll come back with an acrylograph pen in black just so that it pops off nicely, and I'll add just a little bit of detail to that lettering, and otherwise this art journal page is done. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I have listed supplies down below in the description box if you want to check those out. I also want to give a huge shout out to my Scrappy YouTube members. Thank you so much for all of your support. I hope that you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.